Hello and welcome to Boom 11 Football Discussion. And I have with me Abel right here. Abel, we have had an exciting end to UEL, and let's start right away, and we'll talk about Barcelona's match in Old Trafford, where they were knocked out after a 2-1 defeat against Man United. Eric Ten Hag once again getting better of Xavi Hernandez. So let's start off right away with your thoughts on the match and where do you think it went wrong for Barcelona?
Man, don't put me in the spot first. I just came to the live, just getting it synced in. Let's go with the flow, I would say. Let's not go to the main question first. You're like one of those journalists. आपको क्या लगता है? ऐसा हुआ है? But nonetheless, to be very fair, what a bloody game of football, I would say. So that was crazy game of football. First off, I really thought Barcelona had it after that first goal, and then it was a typical Manchester United of these days. They just knew how to come back out of these kind of ruts time and time again, and they've been doing very consistently this season. And that is the best part about this team. I just do not know when can you really stop this team at this point, because they are possibly the best one I've seen of a team in Europe this season, and the kind of revival they've had. I mean, we keep talking about this in this stream, right? And yesterday's victory is going to be one of their best of the season. I think it is their best of the season because Barcelona, though it was going to Pedri and Gavi, but you have to say it's Barcelona at the end of the day, and they were going to come and challenge you, and they did challenge you, and you were the better team. Every player on that pitch stepped up for Manchester United, and I'm so happy to see that happen. A old club which has so much of legacy coming back to its own after a decade, and that is beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, you have to give credit to the fact that Eric Ten Hag just turned things around, and it has always been that scenario with him, isn't it? He really took control of the club by the scruff of their necks. I mean, the players were made to run, what do you say, miles, and they have come miles beyond that defeat they had to Brentford early on, and there were many doubts on Eric Ten Hag being one of those many managers who showed promise and then had to leave, but. Let's start with the first half, Abel, and I mean, it's probably is going to hurt a lot more. But Lewandowski's penalty is what got Barcelona ahead. Even though De Gea did get a hand to it, but it was that powerful Lewandowski shot that we know we've seen him do time and time again. From then on, in that first half, where do you think Barcelona really got it right? And then how did Eric Ten Hag break that jinx?
I mean, uh, as you asked two parts of that question, right? As you did mention about how did Eric Ten Hag break that particular momentum which Barcelona were carrying into that second half of that game, and I personally think it had to do a lot with the way in which how Barcelona were trying to push in the first half. They really came with a lot of momentum, which they lost over a period of time, which I was a little surprised as well. Like, firstly, the momentum with which Barcelona started off that first half, right? That was pretty fascinating to watch. For all right reasons, I thought that is a way which Barcelona would like to play. Uh, but what happened in the second half was that they could operate in tight spaces, and that's where Manchester United really made use of that. Use of what Barcelona could possibly fall. That was not having Pedri and Gavi in their team, and it did happen so that especially Kessia and Roberto did not have that technical ability, especially to press the ball in their final half and to operate in tight spaces in interiors, and that Ten Hag knew that pretty well. If you could stop someone like a Frankie De Jong, who could be the most technically superior player, by using Fred, then a lot of Barcelona's attacks could be quickly stopped. That's why you really saw Manchester United really pressing Barcelona in the midfield, and Manchester United did dominate the midfield in the second half. That was a difference in two halves, I would say so.
I mean, you also have to talk about how probably the penalty that was given away by Manchester United was a little too light, you would say, with Bruno Fernandes not really requiring that foul. It did seem like unnecessary foul from Fernandes' side too early in the game as well, even.
Um, I would say it's touch and go, but Balde was creating that kind of an impact, right? Throughout that game in the first half, you saw how Balde was. Balde was that bigger threat for Manchester United. On the left hand side, the kind of width he was giving, that was exemplary, and it was about time that he created one chance and he won a penalty for them, and that was slightly bit unlucky as well. You could say it's touch and go. Maybe on another occasion it would not have been a penalty, but then it's clear contact of bringing both that, but bringing a player down on clear basis. It is a penalty on any given day. But talking about which, I also thought Barcelona did have their chances, especially when De Gea really kicked it into Sergio Roberto. He should have finished that. Going 2-0 up is a different ball game in a knockout game compared to what you have 1-0. 1-0, you still believe that okay, one goal, you're just one goal away, but having the two-goal advantage, you should bury those. On 9 out of 10 occasions, you should be burying those chances because it doesn't often come your way, especially when you're playing against a team like Manchester United, and that's where it felt like. Uh, Barcelona could have been a little more clinical in terms of their performance in the first half because you were dominating. When you're dominating, you're supposed to really, pump on the pressure and kill a game mostly in first half. You're seeing one of the best teams, right? When you are dominating, you don't score one or two, you score three or four and just try to finish up the game. But then I also give credit to Manchester that they kept composure. They knew a second half was going to be a whole other ball game, and that's exactly what happened. From the minute go 45 minutes, they just came as a team, and Fred scored in the 46th minute, and it was a different Barcelona team from there. Barcelona did have their chances even there, but United really showed that in Old Trafford with the crowd behind them, they have their edge to really go past any team. And I have to give credit to Fred, man. What two legs he has had. In the first leg, he was outstanding, extremely good. People were talking about not having Sabitzer, but Fred has really shown what he can really do if he's given that freedom to really mark a player, and how he can be really annoying for a midfielder as well. As Ten Hag rightly mentioned, he was like a mosquito on Frankie de Jong throughout the 90 minutes that he watched. He rightly was a mosquito on Frankie de Jong as well. But talking about which, I also felt players like Anthony, the kind of impact he made in the second half. He just came on. His pace, his ability to be explosive is such a big key. That's what Barcelona really lacked, players coming off the bench and being explosive. People talk about Ansu Fati, but he's had a disastrous season. I personally think Barcelona should sell him because there are a lot of flaws in him, and I don't think like he's going to improve. Two reasons why after that injury, it's really put him off. I think the development progression has put a huge halt on because of his injury, and that is going to make him less explosive as well. As I mentioned about Anthony's explosiveness, one player which comes into my mind is Ansu Fati. It's a very similar injury like what happened to R9 when he was in his prime of his career. I was very young back then, and I've read a lot about R9's injury, which really changed
Yeah.
his career forever. And that is one thing which I feel with Ansu Fati as well. Remember, he did not even get a surgery done. So for him now to get recovered, and he got injured, he came back and again he got injured. And the second time around, he did not do a surgery, considering the fact that he believed that he could do a natural recovery process. And now that he's back in the team, now he's considered one of the prime players. I personally think it is about time you really understand that it's not working too well for him, and maybe you never know. But I really hope it changes. But it doesn't look like it is going to change. Uh, I think we lost Jaren for a minute, but nonetheless, yeah, as I was talking about, one of the most, yeah, Jaren is back. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, fair. But it is going to be a huge call for Barcelona, isn't it? Because Ansu Fati gets the number 10 a few months after Messi leaves. He was touted to be the next best thing. You yourself has come on live and said that Ansu Fati is probably going to live up to that expectation. We have seen him rise, and at the same time, we've seen him fall as well. Most often than not, when he falls, it's usually back to the hospital for him. But it's just been unfortunate, you would say, that too many injuries too early in his career, and that's the reason why he struggled so much now.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely one of the prime reasons why he struggled. But barring that fact, there's also a reason which is confidence, right? I heard Ferran Torres talk about the mental side of games, and that is very important in sport. We often tend to negate it, but I personally think at this point, you have to talk about the mental side of the game as well, because it is such a valuable facet. It's such an important thing which people try to negate time and time in neuroscience and whatnot and blah blah. People talk about, yeah, it is fine, it's neuroscience. How did people in 90s or 80s play? But there was no social media, my friend. There was no social media. There was no spectators who used to scrutinize. There was not a lot of print media, digital media. There's You don't get to hear a lot of news, even if you're bad or even if you're pretty shit. You wear shit. That doesn't matter. But now with a lot of, if now your videos can go viral if you have a couple of bad moves, and that's how
Yeah.
bad it can get, especially with this day and age. And that's why I personally feel it's a mix of injury, it's a mix of mental side of things, and it's a lot to do with confidence as well. Because when you're confident on the football pitch, you just look at Marcus Rashford, right? He's making things happen. How he was a year ago after that criticism, after all the criticism he received after missing that penalty in Euro final,
Yeah.
and to what he is now, you see a drastic change. People thought he was finished, because he was a promised child of Manchester United. I remember him coming to Manchester United as a 17-year-old kid in 2015, and we were like, wow. And I remember him talking about how hard it was to solve his chemistry classes, and it is how it is easier to play in Premier League. I'm like, damn, man, this guy's got some talent. And for him, his development really stopped at one point. I hope it's similar with Ansu Fati, because there's so much of potential there. He's
Hmm.
entrusted with number 10. And you see this man behind me? Messi is literally filling in those boots, right? He's looked into as a next big guy. But now I personally have a feeling that you can go up there, but I think he needs a move, maybe from Barcelona, because there's a lot of pressure, and he's not stepping up for Barcelona. But you never know. But I like what you talk about Marcus Rashford. As he grows more stronger, fitter, and more braver, he could uh, he could possibly be one of the best out there. I'm not branding Complan there though.
Yeah, I mean, let's hope there is a change in Ansu Fati as well, just like we saw with Marcus Rashford. But I think for me, I've always liked what Marcus Rashford has done off the field, right? He does a lot of amazing work charity wise, and he's always been an ambassador for football, even off the pitch as well. So now it's great to see things are really coming together for him on the pitch as well, because there were many people earlier this season who wanted Man United to sell him, and Menu had written him off, but he's been really Man United's hero this time around. He's really turned things around for his career, and his turnaround has really helped Manchester United. It also speaks in volumes on how Manchester United's fortunes have turned, because it's turned around along with the likes of along with the likes of someone like Marcus Rashford. Let's talk about also the captain, right? Bruno Fernandes. We did speak about him initially. He gave away a foul which led to a penalty, and then obviously had that early miss where you felt, with only De Gea in the goal, he could have had a very good chance. The likes of Bruno Fernandes can easily convert, but instead he just ended up smashing the ball right onto the path of the goalkeeper, and he wasn't as impactful. What do you reckon about his position in this team right now? Because there are so many other players who are coming up, and it is a lot of pressure on him as well, isn't it, to continue to perform the way he did in his first season?
I mean, you have to see this guy's really been like a leader there, and he's shown a lot of maturity, right? When we talk about leaders really stepping up in big games, and yesterday as well, came in with an assist and his back heel there, which led to that second goal. His back heel to Garnacho was beautiful from there. Garnacho tried to hit that shot, then it was saved again. Then I think it was Fred who tried the second attempt and went to Anthony. Anthony finished it off. Even there, that particular play as well, it was Bruno Fernandes who really took that game on. That play was created, and that the perfect assist to Fred once again was really outstanding as well. But barring that, I personally feel, Bruno Fernandes, the leader, is such an important factor to this Manchester United wheel. Now they've been rolling very nicely, and that's also because he's really leading the line. Wherever you ask him to play, he's been doing that job, and that is what you need from a captain. And as a manager like Eric Ten Hag would have dreamt of, you have a versatile player like Bruno Fernandes. He can play as a right winger, he can play as a number 10, he can play as a number 8, he can play in a double pivot if need be, he can play as a false 9. Now what more do you want? And he's putting a lot of work defensively as well, and that is a coach's dream, especially for someone like Eric Ten Hag. And that's why he's the most perfect piece of that. He's the most perfect piece of the Manchester United wheel, which is rolling beautifully.
I mean, let's talk about the two, what do you say, Real Madrid twins that have adjusted to Manchester United like it's Real Manchester, especially the likes of Casemiro. Yesterday we saw Varane as well come into picture. Those two are putting up a very good, very good, play, especially with the kind of defensive acumen that they have shown. Obviously, we know that they're talented players. They know how to perform in Europe, and run me through how Casemiro and Varane have come through, because Varane, I think it took a year at least. He in the previous season he looked out of sorts, but this year with the likes of Casemiro joining in, they have built up a very good partnership, isn't it? And it's almost as if Barcelona fans, they had turned their clocks back with Casemiro and Varane being a big headache for them.
Oh, I was just reading through this article where I was just looking at the defensive stats, and I was just looking at the impact with Casemiro created since his arrival. I think they've just lost 3 games, out
Yeah,
of which he
yeah,
was part of,
something
and
like
they
that.
won almost every game wherever he stay started. Oh, what a crazy stat that is! And when we talk about Manchester United, we talk about the young youth, and we talk about how there's a new project in place. But I really really appreciate one major signing, that is Casemiro. That signing is not a big signing in terms of youngster. He's a 30-year-old. There's a lot of skepticism around it. But then that was a signing which Manchester United brought to make impact right now. Now, it was not a signing for the future. It's not a signing what you see. He's a signing who's a player in prime. The signing which Manchester United thought like you could bring him and he could say results straight up. He's going to be an important part of that process of project as well. And you've seen that. He was coming from winning a Champions League. He was coming from winning a double, rather. He won a La Liga and Champions League. So he's a player who's extremely confident. He's a leader. You've seen him do that every time for Madrid in big games. He's a clutch player. He's got a presence in the midfield, and there's an aura about Casemiro which a lot of midfielders don't, and that is the best part about Casemiro. The moment you're a midfielder and you have to go up against Casemiro, you tend to lose the battle way off the pitch than you have it on the pitch as well, because he's such a he's such a big figure on the pitch, but off the pitch as well. That aura which he brings on the pitch is pretty scary, man. I'll tell maybe I know it's a big word, but then I've not seen a CDM as good as him defensively and his proactiveness on the pitch. 5 European championships, that's a crazy stat. And the only question was, can he go out there and prove it in another team? And he's done it quite commendably. I don't think a lot of players have done it in this fashion, which Casemiro has. And that's where you will have to say this guy is a special player, and he's doing it. He's done it with such a fine grace.
I mean, what I really like about Casemiro is the fact that many most CDMs in the world you would see are very wary about going into those sliding tackles right away. They don't commit as much because they also have to worry about carrying the ball towards other attacking midfielders or the playmakers as such. But with Casemiro, he isn't afraid as such to go dive if he has to get the ball away. He will do those tackles where he throws himself at the ball at the player, and that's something which I see not many CDMs in the world like to do. So that's where I really think with him in your team, it's almost as if you're having a centre back who can play the ball very well as well. So I think that's one thing that Manchester United really is missed, right? Even
Mm.
before they've had Scott McTominay,
McTominay.
who used to play that role, but he isn't as developed yet because he has a long way to go in that
Yeah.
sense. And him being the best CDM in your team probably showed the levels that Man United had, and they struggled in that sense, right? They had the likes of Bruno Fernandes or an attacking
Yeah.
midfielder or a box-to-box midfielder in someone like Christian Eriksen, but to have a player like Casemiro, now they've completed that. What do you say? The three types of midfielders: the attacker, the box-to-box, and the destroyer.
Yeah, I mean, you're just spot on there. I mean, that's. I'll just leave it there because now when we talk about Manchester United's midfield, it looks much more complete. And now Eriksen is injured, but I think once Eriksen is also back, now Sabitzer is there. I think this team becomes even more well-rounded. And Fred, the kind of impact he's been able to create in big games like this, now that is a huge positive for them because he was slightly a weakling in some of the games, but now under Eric Ten Hag, a lot of these players who were written off in Manchester United previously are stepping up in a better way. I think it's got to do a lot with confidence. It's got to do with work ethic. It's got to do a lot with managers' belief as well. It's given that role where you can be a player who does the dirty work, and you can create a lot of impact by doing it. And the kind of pressure Fred has been applying, I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, he's putting in a lot of work rate, especially when it comes to his presence on the field in recent past. And that's what you expect when you have to play as a team. You might not do the most handsome or the most creative kind of play, and that is not your role as well. And you don't expect that from Fred. You need to know what exactly your role and what exactly your role demands. And you've been doing that with perfection. That's all what you need to do if you have to progress as a team. And that's what this Manchester United team has been doing so well. And for example, Verghorst, for example, in the first leg, he's a striker, but he was told to play as a number 10 marking Frankie de Jong. And that was pretty crazy. Marking Pedri and Gavi as well in certain occasions as well. So for him to play in that role, see, that is what you need. You need players who can play in certain roles. Your profile might be a striker, but can you adapt to team demands? And that's something players have been doing for Eric Ten Hag, and that's what you need as a team. A manager could not have dreamt of anything better. Maybe a lot of controversies did happen previously. That's primarily because Ronaldo did not start, and these things were not really doing them any good. So once he left the club, there's been a lot more transparency. There's been a lot less of spotlight in terms of a particular player. It's become more team oriented, and that's played well into the hands of Eric Ten Hag to take complete ownership and control of the team.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much from for the Barcelona Man United game. I think aside from that, we have to talk about. I mean, we have to also look at some of the other results. Renes, for instance, almost made a comeback in the second leg,
Yeah,
but they ended up losing to Donetsk anyway. But I would still say, it is great to see Shakhtar Donetsk going ahead and playing the way they are, because things haven't been easy in Ukraine, and for them to be a shining light, you would say, in these dark circumstances is just great.
yeah.
Also, then you had Roma, Jose Mourinho's Roma having a 2-0 defeat against Salzburg, and they are through as well. Union Berlin, actually, we have to talk about
I
Union
think we
Berlin,
should
right?
set up a complete episode of Union Berlin, and
Yeah, we should.
I think we'll do a podcast on it. I think this particular line do not do
Yeah,
justice to what their improvement have been.
absolutely,
But just in
absolutely.
short, what a bloody
It's been a
turnaround, man.
story.
That's what football stands for. That is the biggest fairy tale I've seen in football in a while now. For a team who survived just on blood donation in 2003 because the team
Yeah.
went bankrupt and they did blood for Union Berlin. And just to give you a highlight, just look this as a trailer for our podcast, which we are going to be releasing. And stay tuned, guys. Just putting it there. We are going to be releasing Boomer Podcast Season 2, and that is where we're going to be talking about specific topics all across sport, and Union Berlin is definitely one of them. But just to put it there once again, I think Union Berlin is the greatest fairy tale of this decade. I've not seen a team who really have revived so much and turn it around in such a short period of time. They're just they're just on level points behind Munich in the Bundesliga at 43.
Yeah.
They're going to be playing against Bayern on Sunday. If things go well for them, they might turn it around and go on top of Bayern Munich there. And on top of that, they have clinched a win against Ajax, which means they are proceeding to round of 16
Yeah.
of a European competition. And most likely they'll be playing Champions League as well next season. Hopefully, because that Bundesliga has become the most exciting league in the world all of a sudden. Because 6 teams are just 3 points away from winning the league. So that's how exciting Bundesliga have gotten all of a sudden. People have been talking about it as a
Yeah.
farmers league, but just before that, there are some crackers left there. So just let's not
Yeah, a little bit
burn
of
the farms just yet.
yeah, you have to say a little bit of drought as well for the farmers in Bayern Munich in Bundesliga. They're not able to farm points. It's become very difficult for them to get anything, because teams like Union Berlin have run the land dry. That's a lot of farm related, what do you say, analogy right there. But I think another exciting one has to be the fact that Inter Milan. I mean, let's talk about the Champions League rather, and let's talk about the high profile match that happened where. In even more sad news, or even more bad news for Barcelona fans, their arch rivals Liverpool have ran amok in the first leg against. I mean, not arch rival Liverpool, but rather their arch rivals Real Madrid ran amok against Liverpool in Anfield, and such something that you don't see. It's not easy to beat Liverpool after they go 2-0 up in the first 14 minutes, and then all of a sudden it's like they forgot how to defend.
I mean, this has been the case for Liverpool throughout this season. I really do not know at this point what can really save this club because, see, I did mention it earlier as well in one of the chatters as to how Liverpool are running like headless chickens. They have no idea of what they're doing. They need a complete revamp throughout their squad. Whatever, they competed for 4 titles last season. What that means is all their players are exhausted, and their players are exhausted to a paramount limit. And their cycle, that particular phase of them dominating football is come to an end because all their players are now crossed their prime, and most of them are not like what they were before, primarily because of injuries, primarily because of their various other reasons as well. Now their midfield is really worn out. They do not have really a midfield out there. And that's one of the reasons why Real Madrid bullied them. It was like
Yeah.
boys versus men. It was like Real Madrid playing a school team in the second half. And they're defending Van Dijk, man. I know he's been suffering a lot of injuries. He's really not looked like himself at all. He's really
Hmm.
been someone who's never like Van Dijk. Van Dijk would look into mirror and look at the videos of last season and be like, who the hell was this player all of a sudden? So that's what Van Dijk has been for Vinicius Jr., for Benzema, for Modric to one riot on Liverpool. At Anfield, it's crazy. I don't think any team has scored 5 goals against Anfield at in a
No, I
European
don't think so.
competition,
Yeah.
and that's also happened.
Yeah, this is the biggest loss Liverpool's ever had. I think previously it was just 3 goals. So from 3 to 5, it's huge. But we also have to talk about. I think for me, probably what went really wrong is the side where Mo Salah, Jordan Henderson, and Trent Alexander-Arnold played because I felt. I mean, I won't really blame Klopp to the extent that I don't think you have a better replacement than Trent Alexander-Arnold in that position. But then to have someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold play so high up the pitch when you have the likes of Vinicius Junior, who's probably the fastest or probably the best left winger out there after the likes of Kylian Mbappe, to have him play so high up the field as a left back, I mean, as a right back rather, isn't it a little baffling for you? Because that means by the time Vinicius Junior gets the ball, he's already five times. He only has 5 times less distance to the goal than Alexander Trent. I mean, Trent Alexander Arnold has to catch up to him.
I mean, let's talk about Trent Alexander-Arnold and the season he's at. Uh, I mean, what a shocking season! This guy has really, really gone off the radar as a right back. He's become a laughing stock for a lot of reasons. I know his attacking gameplay is still okayish. I mean, I would say is nothing like what he was a couple of years ago or what he was in 2019, 20 and 2021 seasons. But now all of a sudden he's looked like a player who's extremely underconfident and also a player who can't defend. I mean, you watch that matches against Napoli where there were occasions where he just gave up. He just knew that he's not good enough to defend. And Vinicius Junior once again bullied him. He bullied him in a
Yeah.
way which sent him back to school. That's what I would say. So this was
And
just
to have
ridiculous.
able to have played Joe Gomez and Alexander Arnold, two players, one who isn't in form and the other who isn't, really a defender at a level, at a starting level, you would say, for any team in the Premier League, let alone Europe, to have them both play on the same side that probably Real Madrid's best player on the pitch played. Isn't that a little baffling for you as a coach from Klopp's side?
I mean, I do not know at this point what to say about this because there are a lot of reasons, right? Firstly, when we talk about Real Madrid, they have, I keep saying this, when you talk about a team like Real Madrid, you can never write them off. They were 2-0 down. You saw they were so calm even when they were 2-0 down. That is something which you cannot buy in the market. That is something what you call experience. That's something which you call you've been there, done it, and we're like, ये तो बच्चा है, हम तो वापस आ सकता है. It's like यहाँ यहाँ नहीं तो Santiago Bernabeu में आ जाओ. It's just as simple as that. They know they can create magic from anywhere, and that's the scariest part about Real Madrid, man. You can never write this team off on a European night because I don't know from where they get these, good memories. It's like a computer which is like stored in them. Like all of a sudden they're like, oh wow, we've done this before. Let's go once again. Let's inject that system, and they just fly from there. And those phases of play, regardless of how much ever you dominate the play in your 80, 70 minutes of the game, they will come back and they will finish you off. And that is the most scary part. The first goal of Real Madrid was excellent. After that, Real Madrid were extremely casual and they scored four.
Yeah, I think at the moment this Real Madrid team hears, the Champions League anthem, all of a sudden they turn into the icons card from the silver card in FIFA. It's just like that. It's all of a sudden their stats are raised, and I don't know what happens. Maybe it's just a Champions League anthem. Maybe if they hadn't played the anthem in the at
But you know
Anfield,
what?
things would have been
They're the
better.
ones who want to stop playing champion. They're like, we're done winning this. Let's go to ESL now. I mean, they're like
Yeah, I
14.
think,
Nobody's going to even come close to 14. So they're like, we're
yeah.
bored of this competition. Let's go to something new. Let's start from scratch and start winning. Let's build up European royalty over there.
Yeah, I think they want to be the kings of Europe. I think they're tired of being the kings of Europe with only 36 teams. They want 80 teams now, and they want to beat all of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, let's talk about some of the other matches as well that happened. Although before we do talk about everything else, also let's one good thing for Liverpool, you would say, is Darwin Núñez scoring.
Yeah, I would say so because he's been their best player. Not just this game, he was excellent against Newcastle. He was good against Everton. Him playing on the left hand side has really brought the best out of him. I finally feel he's found a position where he's able to give a lot of work rate. He's able to create a lot more chances. When Darwin Nunes is on the pitch, he is the most impactful player for the Liverpool team at this point of time, and that also speaks volumes about how much of a season they've had. They've not really believed in him, playing him through the middle, and finally they find like, okay, let's try him out here because Luis Diaz is still not fit, and he's been pulling off a really, really good job for them. And he's the only silver lining in a complete disaster class from Liverpool. And I think he's got a lot to improve, and he still will be one of the crucial players going ahead into the future. But for Liverpool, I think Jurgen Klopp has been doing a lot of mistakes as well. It's just not the team. The kind of tactical substitutions which he's been making has been horrendous so far. I think those mistakes shouldn't be done by a coach. I mean, it is basic. It's just basic that you don't do such kind of mistakes because the moment you start doing that, then you're in serious trouble. And that's what he's been doing continuously, and he's been doing on a consistent basis this season. I think there's this hoodoo, what they call as a seventh season flop or the eighth. I think he's
Yeah.
well past it, but this looks like one of the seasons where he could have got sacked in the club.
Yeah, but do you reckon there's an issue with? I mean, there has been some contention, right? That Jurgen Klopp and FSG Group, the owners of Liverpool, haven't seen eye to eye. Is that the reason why the lack of midfielders in this season, in this
But let me
transfer window?
tell you one thing. They've asked for
Yeah,
attackers, they've given money, right? And they have six attackers. Why not? They brought in Shakiri, they brought Minamino previously. Why didn't they ever buy a right back option for Trent? Why didn't they ever think of buying a midfield option? They knew the moment
yeah.
Thiago is injured, they're done. And they never bought. January transfer window, they were dead. They were like a dead person out there who had no idea what to
Yeah,
do. And all of a sudden they came out saying that they
precisely.
want to sell the club. And then they heard about
I mean,
ESL.
that is
They're
a
like,
very
we don't
good
want to sell the
question
club.
right there. I mean, that's a very good question right there. Why? I mean, you know that Trent Alexander-Arnold is more of an attacking right back. Why not buy a defensive right back just to balance things out, so that when you play
Exactly.
a team like Real Madrid, where you have the likes of Vinicius Junior, you can counter him at least in the second half, if not the first half.
I mean, yes, that is a possibility, but they've not done it, right? That's the worst part
Yeah.
now. They've not really brought a right back for a while now, and that is scary. They do not have depth in their squad. And that's something which we've been talking about this team for the longest period of time. Liverpool is a depthless squad. The moment some of the players get injured, they look like a team which is nothing like their main team. Now, that is what's not going to make you win titles, and it's exactly what's happened. If you have to win titles, you need depth in your squad. If you have to compete for years and dominate the game, you need to keep refreshing your squad. Real Madrid has done it
Yeah,
beautifully. Look at their next gen of players.
absolutely.
They really transitioned without even people knowing about it. So now for Liverpool, it's just the opposite. They have brought in good attackers. I give them credit for that. Midfield, it's zero.
Yeah, I mean, we have to talk about Real Madrid, right? They've realized that over the time period that they aren't the giant that they used to be in terms of financials. That's the reason why they want a Super League also, right? We will get into it when we do a podcast. But now, the what they've done is they used to sign Galacticos, they used to have those huge deals once upon a time. But now what they're doing is they're signing future Galacticos. The players who would, if not under Real Madrid, would develop anyway because they have the talent. That's how they got in Vinicius Junior. That's how they got in Kamavinga. That's how they got Chouameni. Because these players are the future Galacticos and they're already ready to breed them.
So for Real Madrid, when we talk about their transition, I think one of the vital or the focal point in their entire transition has to be the factor that Vinicius Junior has been such an important player, and the way in which he's really come of age in the last couple of seasons. I don't think you really expected him to play in such a way, because I remember in 2021 season where Benzema told that Benzema and him have was in a rift, literally on a rift. He was like saying that this guy never passes the ball and he's such a weird guy. And I don't exactly remember what was the comment made, but I remember there was a huge rift after the Chelsea game. And now just look at that moment, right? In that Liverpool game, Vinicius could have easily scored a hat trick, but then he decided to assist to Benzema, and Benzema went past Allison and Bajcetic, and Benzema scored. But talking about which, Bajcetic is the
Yes.
player which Liverpool should really invest in. There's a lot of promise on him. He's straight out
Yeah,
the
yeah.
academy. I think that's one thing which that's one thing which FSA Group doesn't have to really ponder upon, because it's a free of cost player coming straight from the homegrown talent, and there's not a lot of headache. And see, he's your best midfielder. An 18-year-old is the best midfielder among everybody, and that's such a bad state of affairs. I'm not saying that he had a very good game. You can never compete when you're playing against Modric and Modric and other players. Even Tony Cruz was not there. Even Chouameni was not there. But still, when you're playing against the likes of Modric and others, it's very tough to really dominate. So, but he still was decent. But when you talk about Benzema and when you talk about Vinicius Junior, the class they've been in, it's very tough to defend against them.
Yeah, it was Bayetic and Fabinho, Jordan Henderson versus the likes of Modric, Camavinga, and Valverde. So I think that pretty much sums up the game right there. But let's just move on quickly then to Napoli versus Eintracht Frankfurt, where again Napoli just dominated the play as expected. I think that's pretty much expected. But Man City versus Leipzig, able Man City held to another draw. It's like you guys are just getting used to scoring a goal and then letting the other team have one as well. Guardiol, the player who Messi ran circles around in that Croatia World Cup game, is the one who scored the goal in the 70th minute and then cancelled out Riyad Mahrez's 27-minute goal. So surprised, you would say. I know it was away leg, and I mean Man City would have been happy if the away goal rule was still there, but surprised that it was a 1-1 draw. Or you reckon Leipzig did deserve what they got? I mean, what they ended up with.
I was surprised. I expected Manchester City to really do well, but I think Manchester City are, I don't know what's happening to them. Just being very casual. It's not the most intense Manchester City team what you see, and that's got to do a lot with Haaland's involvement as well. That's really restricted this Manchester City team in a lot of ways. We've been
So I mean, I
we've been
want to ask you
appreciating
this.
Haaland for a
Okay,
lot of reasons.
do
Yeah,
you still reckon that Haaland is underutilized at Man United? I mean, Man City. I know. On the face of it, you'll be like 26 goals in the Premier League already. He's broken
yeah.
the record of Aguero. You reckon he had more in him? It's just that the players he's playing around with is not used to having a striker. That sounds odd, but
I don't know if he's underutilized or if he's not the right person for Manchester City, because Manchester City over the last, I know Kun Aguero was there, but Kun Aguero was not a Haaland. Kun Aguero used to give
yeah.
you a lot more work rate. Kun Aguero was more a player who could drift wide when need be. Kun Aguero could drop down a lot better. But with Haaland, it's like he's a more target man kind of a person. I know he'll give you work rate to a certain extent. He can press the ball well. He can win your ball. He can make those runs. He's quick. He's on the box presence is fantastic. But when you have a player like Haaland, the defensive work rate really drops down to a considerable amount, which Manchester City are not used to having. He does not press from the front, and that is something which Manchester City used to do it last season. It was Gabriel Jesus, or it was Foden playing through the middle, or it was De Bruyne playing through the middle, or Grealish playing through the middle. That's a different ball game altogether. The fluidity which Manchester City had to interchange the players, playing total football, which as they were doing throughout that last season or the season prior to that. But this season, I personally think that particular aspect has been thrown out of the window just to fit Haaland in. and that's been one of their backfall downfall this season. I still think Manchester is still figuring out how to fit Haaland in right into the system against some of the opposition, because it's easy to figure Manchester City out this season than what it was last season or the season prior to that. Because this season they become much more predictable because Haaland's presence is there in the box. Manchester is trying to play balls in so that Haaland can get involved in the box a lot more, which is not the case with Manchester City. All their players were getting involved. Hence, you don't see a top scorer from Manchester City ever. If you look at the last couple of seasons, you barely see a top scorer from Manchester City. They used to win titles, but not having a top scorer. And you had players all across in the midfield, in the forward line, chipping in, playing through the middle, playing fluid football, which is being put a break on with Haaland. And that's the biggest downfall of having a player like Haaland. Something which I worried prior to having Haaland, something which is happening right now. I still think Man City can utilize it by being more direct, by using slightly different kind of play. It is possible even now by making De Bruyne as an outlet where he could release the ball to Haaland a lot more, being up front. De Bruyne playing deep on the lines does not really help. He should be more direct. He should be the attacking midfielder kind of a player who links up play or be a second striker if need be, links up play and be more direct with Haaland, put a lot more long balls in, uses strength on the box. I think that's going to help Man City be much more different, and that could bring a slight element of unpredictability, not as much as what they were last couple of seasons, but compared to what they are right now.
I mean, it is very difficult for someone to go ahead and call Pep Guardiola predictable here, but a big call I would say, Will, that you are going ahead and calling likes of I mean, that man can make his, left back, his defensive wing backs do anything in the world. You might see a formation where they are doing tap dance to defend. But interesting call right there. So let's talk about Inter Milan and Porto. Once slightly Inter Milan getting a 86-minute winner with Romelu Lukaku, who's had his struggles this season, but finally getting that goal after a red card and a 10-man Porto team in the 78th minute. Now, moving ahead to the second leg, right, which is still a considerable time to go. Would you reckon any of these ties are going to reverse, or you reckon things are going to follow suit?
I think, see, it's very tough, but maybe the Inter Milan Porto still can get it through. Chelsea Dortmund is a possibility. Bayern PSG, I mean, there is a lot of bullshit which is surrounding around PSG. Vitinha fighting with Messi, whatnot. It's just not working well for them. And a sporting director like Luis Campos coming right into the pitch, trying to shout at players. I mean, that is a little crazy for me, because a lot of these kind of things which you don't often see on the footballing pitch has been associated with PSG recently. But it is better than what they were last season. There's a lot more camaraderie. That Mbappe is slightly off the radar. If Messi and Mbappe decides, okay, let's join hands, put on a performance like what we did in World Cup final against Bayern Munich, then I don't think anybody in the world can stop PSG, man. But I provided they need a midfielder to do it. They need midfielders to step up and really provide those kind of balls for Messi and Mbappe, because the work rate from midfielders should be top notch. Because Messi and Mbappe are not going to put in a lot of work rate up front. So that is one of the biggest downfall as well. You can't have three players in your team who's not going to do a lot of defensive work rate. And that's the major issue with PSG. And modern football is all about putting in a work rate, man. Regardless of how big a name you are, you cannot be a player who can just walk around the pitch. You have to put in the yards, win the tackles, win the second balls, and move forward. That's what United is doing a very good job.
Yeah, I mean, the likes of Messi, right? The number 10, the classic number 10 is disappearing. It's a dying breed in football. And that's the reason why I think with Neymar as well, another name there, the three players not defending as much really puts a lot of pressure. And PSG, you would still say, has not got the best defensive backline as well. Even Ashraf Hakimi likes to, is a player who likes to go venture forward and try and attack the goal. So that's been a difficult part for PSG as well. But you reckon with PSG, and the issue has still been that they are going after the high ranking players and not finding any cohesion.
Yeah, that is one factor, because I was just listening to one of their I think it was one of the it was not sporting. I think it was a sporting director who came out saying that we are looking at a project at this point and we're not looking at big names, and they're just doing antithetical of what they are doing right now.
Yeah.
And that is not exactly what they should be doing, because when they bought Luis Campos from Lille, he won them a league, right? And that was one of the major factor to build a team, to build one for the future, build a project by keeping it by blooding in more players, by blooding in young players. You can't buy all players from here and there, build zero chemistry, and that's not going to do you any good as well. That's something which has been happening with PSG team for far too long. You need to build the right kind of midfielders, right, who can fit into the system, and that's where I think you need a manager who can be much more ideological, who can be a manager who takes a lot more awareness, who can really take control of the dressing room, where he's the boss man and he decides the players he wants. Now the board is really wanting to buy whoever in the market who looks good, and they're just getting them on board. That is not something which will fit into a system. That's not going to win you titles ever.
You reckon it's time for them to look at a super manager than some of the super players out there?
I mean, there are thoughts on this whether they should go for a Zidane or they should go for someone like Tuchel again. I mean, it does not really work at this point because Zidane as well. I don't know if it's a long term thing, if he's going to come in and turn it around for them. But Zidane, he's never been tested as such. I mean,
Hmm.
it's unfair to call the credentials, or if to test the credentials of a manager who's won three-peat with Real Madrid, who really won three Champions League back to back to back. But then with Zidane, there is a biggest flaw as well when it comes to transitions, when it comes to managing a team. He's a very good manager. Let me be very honest, but is he that figure who can really bring a system into play? Which I really question, because Zidane had a team, man. He really had a team. He all what he'll do is man manage, but he's not been really tested as such. And I think that's going to be his major test. And even when Zidane took over, Madrid were doing really good. They had just won the La Decima in 2014, and they were just going in a good path. They had the players. Ronaldo was in his prime. Modric, Kroos was getting together. Casemiro was just blooding in. Ramos was part of it as a leader. Marcelo was on fire. Carvajal was there. Benzema was Bale and Benzema and Ronaldo up front. All what he did was manage them, keep them all happy throughout a certain period of time, and he did that beautifully. And now in a PSG team, there's a lot more drama. Messi leaving, that is the biggest news, right? Messi coming back to
Yeah.
Barcelona. Possibilities for
Yeah, I think
Barcelona.
there are three names being thrown around there. That's David Beckham's Inter Miami. Then there is Barcelona, obviously, and Al Hilal.
Yeah.
So
I don't
any
think
of these
Messi is going to anywhere else other than Europe. So from whatever I've been able to read is that
will
Messi
shift
now want to shift out of Europe primarily because of
it.
family reasons, and he feels his sons need an education and they need to be put in one place. So because of that very reason, I don't see him go to anywhere else out of Europe. Even if he's going to stay, it's going to be within Europe, and he's got two options. He's got a house in Barcelona or to stay in PSG. So it's up to him to decide. And whatever I see, is that his return in Barcelona is a high possibility at this point of stage, and I think he's going to
If
walk
you guys
straight
have
into the Barcelona
seen,
team.
if you guys caught the PSG versus Lille match, you would have seen his last minute goal, and I don't think he has any reason to leave Europe yet. I don't think he's done with Europe yet, and I think he's got still good 2 to 3 years, if not more, because
I think
it's
Barcelona needs
Messi.
Messi for Europe. Just let's put it that
Yeah,
way.
they.
If Barcelona has to compete in European competitions, they need Messi. That was the biggest difference, man. Because you will have players on Messi, and Messi will create something for others, and that is the biggest
Yeah.
difference. And that's how Barcelona really got out of the hole more often than not. But in bigger games, now with a very good team, what he's got
Yeah, and
around
I
him,
think
I think
you
he
would
could
also say
create.
that Barcelona is missing a number 10 or an attacking midfielder as such, right? A playmaker, you would say. Because they've got Pedri
Not
and Gavi.
certainly, but Barcelona are missing a player who can really link up with Lewandowski a lot more, because
Yeah.
Lewandowski is there. Lewandowski has Messi as a second striker in that team. It's going
Hmm.
to really create a different aura altogether. Then Pedri can also be a lot more defensive. He can go deep a little bit on the field, and they'll make Messi a lot more advanced. And then you have the pressing ability of Gavi and Pedri around Messi, which leaves Messi with an open hand. But that denies a spot for someone like a Dembele or Ansu Fati, which is fine. I think you have to look at, maybe I know it's not a long term plan, but it'll be fun while it lasts.
Yeah, and also someone like Messi who knows how to win in Europe might be a big plus for this team because this team still doesn't know how to win yet. And most of the players will be, except for the exception of Jordi Alba and Mark ter Stegen don't remember the glory years because they haven't been part of it. And even Lewandowski is a import really, and
Yeah.
he knows
You know,
how
at
to
this
win
point of
in
stage,
Bayern.
Messi is really chilling around with his football, was what I personally feel. After winning the World Cup, he
He
just
is,
feels like
he
he's
is,
accomplished everything. But I think if he
yeah,
needs a little motivational factor, it is to make Barcelona to win a Champions League. And you know,
yeah,
when Messi is extremely motivated, you've seen that in the World Cup, he's a different beast. Not a lot of teams can stop him. He can really turn it around. He's like a switch. If he really wants, he can really play back all those years. And you saw it in the World Cup with every game, how he turned back the years, how he really brought in his A game, and that's going to really benefit Barcelona in a lot of ways. For example, yesterday night, you didn't miss Messi in some of the opportunities, some of the open plays. You know, when if Messi was at the kind of outlets with kind of spaces which Manchester United created, you know, that could have been a big difference. And that's why I feel Messi's presence in Europe, I'm pretty sure will help Barcelona go a long way, deep into the Champions
yeah.
League at
And
least.
Messi has what do you say is a clean shave Messi now, and we all know what a clean shave Messi can do. But expecting more news on where Messi is going to end up with. But for now, this is it from us. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us, and we'll be back soon. We've got some exciting new content coming up soon in the form of podcast as well. We'll be delving into specific
Yeah, it's gonna be
subjects
funny.
and
It's gonna be nice. It's gonna be very specific. Don't expect to discuss on everything and anything in the world. That is just for live streams. It's gonna be very specific. We're gonna have a question of weather, and West is gonna be that particular topic, and that's where I think
yeah,
it's gonna be exciting for you guys. Football, cricket, maybe business on sports, a lot of
yeah.
marketing analytics. This is what our topics are going to turn around, and I think it's going to make it very exciting. And also watch our Instagram space for all the short content on that as well. Take care, all of you.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. And don't forget to download and play Boom 11 on either Google Play Store or Apple App Store, depending on whether you have an Android or app or an iOS, because it's a risk-free fantasy experience and you don't have to spend any money, but you can definitely get a lot of out of it.
Yeah, and also try the predictor feature as well. Just putting
Of
it right
course,
there.
yeah.